July 25, 1944. Normandy, France. The hedgerows are quiet in the early morning, too quiet. American infantrymen press their bodies into the earth, helmets low, rifles untouched. They are not waiting for German fire. They are waiting for something else. Above them, the sound begins faintly. A distant hum, then dozens of engines, then hundreds. B-17s and B-24s fill the sky in tight formation, sunlight flashing off aluminum wings. This is supposed to be salvation, a wall of American air power meant to tear open the German front and end weeks of bloodshed. The men on the ground have been told to stay down. They have been told the bombs will fall ahead of them. They trust the plan. Then the first explosions come too close. Then closer. The earth lifts, bodies vanish, radios go silent. And among the men pinned beneath the falling bombs is a U.S. Army general, one of the most important officers in the war, standing on the front line, watching his own army unleash destruction. Within minutes, the United States Army will kill one of its own. And that moment will become Operation Cobra's darkest secret, leading directly into the decisions that made it possible. By the third week of July 1944, the Allied invasion of Normandy was no longer in danger of failure, but it was far from victory. 6 weeks after D-Day, the U.S. Army was still trapped in a landscape that favored the defender. The Norman bocage, thick hedgerows, sunken lanes, narrow fields turned every advance into a short, violent struggle. German units, though battered, used the terrain expertly. Progress was measured in yards. Casualties mounted daily. American divisions paid heavily for each gain. Infantry assaults stalled. Tanks struggled to maneuver. Artillery helped, but it could not crack the German line wide open. For commanders at the top, the fear was no longer defeat, it was stagnation. General Dwight D. Eisenhower needed momentum. General Omar Bradley needed a breakthrough. The solution was not subtle, it was overwhelming force. The plan was called Operation Cobra, a concentrated strike west of Saint-Lô, aimed at collapsing German resistance and opening the door to a mobile war across France. Once the line broke, American armor would pour through. General George S. Patton, newly activated, would lead that exploitation. But Cobra depended on one decisive act before any infantry moved forward. Air power. American commanders believed that strategic bombing, the same tool used against German cities and factories, could be repurposed for the battlefield. Thousands of tons of bombs would smash a narrow section of the front, killing defenders, destroying communications, and stunning survivors. It was a bold idea. It was also deeply risky. Never before had heavy bombers been used so close to friendly front lines on this scale. The margin for error was measured not in miles, but in seconds. Yet pressure to act was intense, and faith in American air power was absolute. To ensure the bombing worked, a senior officer was sent forward to observe it personally, a man whose influence shaped how the U.S. Army fought the entire war. That decision would place him directly beneath the bombs, and it would expose the unseen cracks in Cobra's design. The responsibility for the opening blow of Operation Cobra fell to the United States Army Air Forces, specifically the 8th Air Force, the same force that had spent months leveling targets deep inside Germany. On paper, the numbers were staggering. More than 1,500 heavy bombers, B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators, would strike a narrow strip of land less than 2 miles wide. They would be supported by fighter bombers and medium bombers flying at lower altitude. In total, nearly 4,000 tons of explosives were scheduled to fall in front of American ground forces. The theory was simple: destroy everything in the target zone. The execution was not. Strategic bombers were designed to hit large, fixed targets from high altitude. They were not built for precision attacks just beyond friendly lines. Bombing accuracy depended on weather, visibility, wind drift, timing, and exact alignment. Any error could be catastrophic. Warnings were raised. Ground commanders expressed concern about the approach path of the bombers, instead of flying perpendicular to the front lines, which would limit damage if bombs fell short. Aircraft would approach parallel to American positions. The reason was logistical. It reduced risk to bomber formations and simplified navigation. It also meant that any miscalculation would send bombs straight down the length of U.S. lines. Smoke from earlier bombardments, artillery fire, and hedgerow fighting further complicated visibility. Colored smoke markers were placed to mark friendly positions, but from thousands of feet in the air, they could be obscured or mistaken. On July 24, the first attempt at Cobra began. Bombs fell short. American troops were hit. The attack was quickly halted. The lesson was obvious, but the pressure to succeed was overwhelming. The operation was rescheduled for the next day, July 25, with only minor adjustments. The same bombing approach was approved. The same risks were accepted. The belief remained that air power, properly applied, would still shatter the German front. At the edge of the battlefield, Lieutenant General Lesley J. McNair, commander of U.S. Army Ground Forces, moved forward to observe. He was not there as a tourist. He was there to judge whether the Army's doctrine, his doctrine, actually worked. As dawn broke, American infantry again hugged the ground. Radios crackled. Smoke drifted across the fields. Above them, bomber formations turned onto their attack runs. And the theory of modern warfare was about to collide with reality. July 25, 1944. Shortly after 9:30 a.m., the sky over western Normandy fills with aircraft. Wave after wave of American heavy bombers appears above the clouds, flying in disciplined formations that stretch for miles. On the ground, U.S. infantrymen press deeper into the dirt. Some cover their helmets with ponchos. Others bury their faces in their arms. Everyone knows what is coming. The first bombs fall where they are supposed to. Then a second wave approaches. This time, something is wrong. From high altitude, the smoke marking the American front line is difficult to see. Wind drifts it out of place. Bombardiers, seconds from release, rely on instruments and timing. Small errors compound rapidly at 20,000 feet. Bombs begin to fall short. Explosions walk backward across the battlefield, not toward the Germans, but toward American positions. Trenches collapse. Vehicles are tossed aside. Men are killed without ever seeing the enemy. Radio calls flood command channels. Frontline officers scream for the bombing to stop. Some aircrews recognize the mistake and attempt to abort. Others, locked into formation and timing, continue their runs. At ground level, Lieutenant General Lesley J. McNair stands with soldiers of the 30th Infantry Division near St. Lo. He is unarmed. He wears no distinctive insignia that would mark him as one of the most senior officers in the U.S. Army. He is there to witness the doctrine he helped create. When the bombs land around him, there is no warning. One explosion hits directly within the American line. Another follows seconds later. Men disappear in fire and debris. The ground itself seems to rupture. When the smoke clears, McNair is gone, killed instantly by American bombs. Nearby units are shattered. Survivors are stunned, bleeding, disoriented. Some believe they are under German counterattack. Others know the truth and struggle to accept it. Above them, the last bomber formations pass overhead. The bombing ends, and in its wake lies silence, broken only by fires burning where American troops once waited for victory. The bombing does not end cleanly. It fades out in fragments. Some aircrews, realizing the disaster below, release their bombs early or jettison them harmlessly into open fields. Others complete their assigned runs, unaware that the front line beneath them has already been torn apart. From the air, the battlefield looks like any other target zone: smoke, fire, movement erased. On the ground, command collapses into confusion. Entire platoons of the 30th Infantry Division are missing. Radios are destroyed. Officers are dead or wounded. Medics move through cratered earth, pulling survivors from collapsed foxholes. Many of the wounded carry no visible injuries, only shock, ruptured eardrums, concussions. Word spreads quickly but quietly. A U.S. general has been killed. Not by Germans, by American bombs. Lieutenant General Lesley J. McNair's death is confirmed within hours. His body is recovered in fragments. There is no public announcement. There is no ceremony at the front. His name is removed from the day's operational focus as commanders struggle to regain control of the battlefield. Despite the catastrophe, Operation Cobra does not stop. Bradley orders the ground assault to proceed. Units that can still move are pushed forward. Gaps created by the bombing, unintended as they were, have weakened German defenses. Some enemy positions are obliterated. Others, stunned by the air attack, fail to respond in time. American forces advance through wreckage that includes their own destroyed equipment and fallen soldiers. The line bends, then it breaks. By the afternoon, U.S. armor begins pushing through the shattered German front. The breakout that Cobra was designed to achieve finally takes shape, built, in part, on a disaster no one wants to name. Behind the advance, reports are rewritten. Casualty figures are minimized. References to friendly fire are softened or removed. McNair's death is classified as a combat loss without detail. The operational success of Cobra quickly overshadows its cost. But for the men who survived the bombing, and for those who watched a senior American general die beneath American aircraft, the memory does not fade. And in the days that follow, the U.S. Army is forced to confront what the incident reveals about modern war: command responsibility and the price of speed. Those consequences will unfold long after the bombs stop falling. In the days following Operation Cobra, the official story is clear and carefully controlled. The breakout from Normandy is a success. German defenses west of St. Lo collapse. American armor pours through the gap. Within weeks, U.S. forces race across France. Cobra works. But beneath that success lies a quieter accounting. The friendly fire bombing on July 25 kills more than 100 American soldiers and wounds several hundred more. The 30th Infantry Division suffers the heaviest losses. Some units are so badly disrupted that they are temporarily combat ineffective, not from German resistance, but from American air power. The death of Lieutenant General Lesley J. McNair is treated with extreme caution. McNair is not just another general. He is the commander of U.S. Army ground forces, responsible for training, doctrine, and force structure for millions of soldiers. His influence shapes how American units fight across every theater of the war. Publicly, his death is announced without detail. Privately, senior commanders understand the implications. There is no court-martial, no public investigation, no formal assignment of blame. The war is moving too fast, and the success of Cobra makes deeper scrutiny politically and strategically inconvenient. Still, changes are made. The U.S. Army quietly revises procedures for close air support. Heavy bombers are used far more cautiously near friendly lines. Greater emphasis is placed on fighter bombers, forward air controllers, and improved communication between ground and air units. The lesson is clear, even if it is never spoken aloud. Strategic bombing and battlefield precision are not the same thing. For the men who survived the incident, the psychological impact lingers. Veterans later describe a unique bitterness, not toward the enemy, but toward the system that placed them beneath thousands of tons of explosives with so little margin for error. Friendly fire, they learn, carries a different kind of weight. McNair is buried at Normandy American Cemetery, among the soldiers he helped train but rarely commanded in the field. His grave carries no mention of how he died. In official histories, his death is often reduced to a single line. Operation Cobra becomes a case study taught for its success, not its cost. Yet among historians and military planners, the incident remains a turning point, a stark demonstration of the limits of technology, the danger of doctrine applied without flexibility, and the human consequences of decisions made far above the battlefield. The United States Army breaks out of Normandy and accelerates toward victory. But it does so carrying a lesson written in its own blood, a lesson about power, control, and the thin line between dominance and disaster. That lesson would echo far beyond Normandy, shaping how modern armies think about war itself. Operation Cobra is remembered as the moment the war in Western Europe changed direction. Before it, the Allies were trapped in hedgerows, paying heavily for every mile. After it, the German front collapsed and the road to Paris lay open. In operational histories, Cobra stands as a success, bold, decisive, and necessary. But beneath that narrative lies a harder truth. The same industrial power that shattered German defenses also exposed the limits of control in modern war. Thousands of aircraft, tons of explosives, and carefully written plans could not overcome fog, friction, and human error. When those forces failed, they failed instantly and without discrimination. The death of Lieutenant General Lesley J. McNair carries a quiet symbolism. He was not reckless. He was not careless. He believed in systems, training, and doctrine. He stood at the front to see whether those ideas worked. What he witnessed for only a moment was how unforgiving modern warfare had become, even to those who designed it. Friendly fire has no enemy face. It offers no meaning or justification. It simply happens when complexity outruns control. The U.S. Army learned from Operation Cobra, though not publicly. Coordination improved. Precision became a priority. Air and ground forces grew closer, not in theory but in practice. These lessons would shape American warfare for decades. Yet the men killed on July 25, 1944, remain largely absent from the story of victory. They died believing the danger lay ahead of them. They were wrong. In Normandy, among white crosses facing the sea, there rests a general killed by his own side, and hundreds of soldiers whose names are rarely spoken when Cobra is remembered. Their deaths are not a footnote to success. They are a reminder. In war, even the most powerful armies can lose control of the very force meant to save them.